Hello, are you here to debate?
Yes, I am.
All right. Can I get your name, age, and
Good. How
pronouns,
about you?
please?
Oh, sorry. My name is Benjamin. I'm 35 years old, and my pronouns are he, him.
All right, Benjamin. Off topic, but I really don't get many pronoun crash outs anymore. Changing the world one pronoun at a
What?
time. Okay, Benjamin, what topic do you disagree with on the board?
Trans women being true women.
Okay, what is a true woman?
I believe a true woman should be defined by their chromosomes and DNA. So you heard before the last argument, the woman kind of stuck hard to that last term of XXXY, but refused to kind of elaborate on that.
Uh huh.
Well, I believe one of the major issues we have to look at is genetically when it comes to looking at women, we were taught in school, even though we're trying to change it now, that XX is what women are born into.
Well, I would consider XX to be a feature of genotypic sex, not gender. So that would just be the differing here, right? Like, I agree that like for most of the 80s and 90s, like when kids were in school, they were taught like, hey, females are women, but that was like bare bones basic level biology. And when you get into like more advanced biology, you realize like how varied human sexual development is. So I don't think it really works to use sex to define women.
I think, though, we have to in a way because women have reproductive organs, and usually, if those organs are damaged or anything, it's by a genetic disease or by an outside
Okay,
term
so
or
but then so
outside
some
condition
women
that
wouldn't
happens
have
with.
those. But yeah, but that would mean that would it being caused by a genetic thing doesn't matter. That would still mean that some women don't have this. You know what I mean?
Yes, exactly, but they'd still be classified as women because they were born with the XX chromosomes.
What about the ones that aren't?
Well, that's hard to describe because the ones who were born without that usually is a genetic anomaly and isn't really common. It's kind of the outlier of that effect.
Yeah, but the frequency wouldn't, because right now you are making a necessary condition to be a woman. For this category distinction, you're saying you must be born with XX chromosomes. But now you're agreeing that there are some women that aren't born with XX chromosomes, but they still meet that classification of woman. So what is the thing that's classifying them as women?
I guess to an extent, it has to be the fact that you are born with the XX chromosome because if you're not, and say you're born naturally as a man, but you feel as your personality as you grow up in age, you identify as a woman. I don't really see how that allows you to say you're a true woman or even labeled in the woman category.
I don't think we need to even appeal to trans women to point to the problems with using chromosomes as your definition, your standard for women. We can just forget about trans women for a second here because it's not even, you don't even need to appeal to them to point out to the flaws with the XXXY definition.
What are the flaws of it?
Things like Jovan already pointed out, there are women who aren't XX. There are women who are XY. There are women who don't have uterus. Like there are exceptions to all of these. So they can't be necessary conditions, right?
No, but there should be a strong basis for it. Maybe there are outliers, like the whole world is a spectrum and everything falls into different categories. And yes, things will change its way, but there is just the fact that when you're born as a woman, you are born with a pair of chromosomes that are dedicated and defined by you
So
and by
the
science.
trans-inclusive definition of sex, the trans-inclusive understanding of biological sex, again, doesn't in any way dispute that most women, most cisgender women, are born with XX chromosomes. That is not in contention. The statistical rate at which most people tend to be born cisgender with the expected chromosomes is not in contention at all. But my model allows me to account for the fact that most women are born cisgender with XX chromosomes and that some women are born XY, or they're born without a uterus, or they are trans women. My model accounts for what you're talking about and the exceptions to the rule. Your model can't account for the exceptions, and that's kind of the thing we're objecting to here.
Understandable. But if we start allowing people to define their own genders, where do we draw the line at? When do things start getting a little too unnecessary, like when it comes to self-identification?
Well, I think we would have to let people define their own genders because like gender is an identity based system, and so like the only person that can tell you what my identity is me, right? Like who
Mhm.
else can, like, gender is inherent to the mind. It's inherent to your perception of oneself. So only the self can make an identity claim. That'd be like if somebody said to me like I'm Christian and I was like no you're not. Like I can't really make that claim for somebody. I can say
Mhm.
you don't meet my characteristics of what I would consider a Christian, but I can't tell you that you're not.
Hmm.
Or the best one I like to use is friend, right? Like me and Arden could have two completely different criteria for what makes someone our friend. But I can't look at Arden and go, well, they're not your friend because they don't meet my criteria of friend. Right? You're making determinations that are like, in the mind. So it's sex is a mind independent trait, but gender is a fully mind dependent trait.
Well, I mean, it's not just a full mindset. It is also biological. They're born with, higher levels of estrogen, higher levels of, maternal instincts. They have a womb. Some do, unless there's, like
I
my
would
friend who
push
had
back on the
cancer and they
maternal
had to have
instincts
it
thing.
removed.
I think that's mostly socialized in nature, and it's not like it's
Mhm.
not of the case that all women are born with maternal instincts and are more maternal than men. It's just the way that we've socialized men and women. I would say most traits that we consider like womanly or manly are socialized traits.
Well, that's an interesting viewpoint, but don't you see how things could slowly get dangerous when other people who have a more darker mentality start to use the woman excuse to like invade women's bathrooms or,
Oh,
find ways to. Oh, I'm sorry.
no, I'm excited you're going down this lane because I always think this is like it's a really common talking point. So I don't blame you at all for like kind of going down this line. Like it's blasted in the media all the time. So of course you're thinking about it. But I think it's so silly because if first of all, the majority of sexual assaults happen like in the home or in the church. They're happening by a close family friend, someone that the victim knows very well. The vast majority, so it's like it's almost never happening by strangers in a bathroom. But even if it were, even if that weren't the case, that most sexual assaults are happening by someone the victim knows, like the notion that somebody would go through transition to assault someone is so silly. Like that is the most cumbersome way you could possibly go about committing a crime, right? Because like
Oh
there's
no,
no
no, I'm not
bathroom
talking
guards
about
right
them
now.
going through the full transition. I'm saying as soon as they caught doing something wrong, like a creepy dude entering a woman's bathroom to peep on them, he's like, oh no, no, no,
And
no, no, I just identify as a woman and tries to like weasel his way
There's
out of it.
there's two things that I have wrong with this assertion. First of all, a sign on a bathroom ain't stopping somebody. If like somebody
yeah,
wants to assault you, it doesn't matter if the sign says woman or the sign says men. They're going in.
I was
Secondly,
going to
what's
assault you, but the sign
this
stopped
sign
me.
stopped me,
Sorry.
right? But like more importantly, I think it'd actually be easier for men to fake it if we designate bathrooms by sex. Because then, like, let's say you have someone that looks like Arden and you have someone that looks like me. Okay. Now, let's say, let's just, in our hypothetical, I am a cisgender man. That's weird. I am a cisgender man, but let's just say I'm a cisgender man. Or you know what? We'll do two hypotheticals. Let's say I'm a transgender man. Let's say I was a trans man, right? And Arden is a trans woman. Who would you rather go into the bathroom, into like the woman's restroom? Me or Arden? I wouldn't say me, right? I would be more
I wouldn't
comfortable if
say you
someone that looked
either.
like me went into the men's room.
That's true. I would hope you would go into the men's bathroom, but
But
at the same time, like,
if we separate bathrooms by sex and we do bathroom bans, I might have to go into the woman's bathroom. And even more, an even deeper hypothetical, let's say we do this, and now I'm a cisgender man who wants to creep. I can just lie and say I'm a trans man. I can just be
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'm trans. I have to be in here because of the bathroom bans. What are you going to check? We can't pull down my pants. So now what do we do?
no, you're right. But the work in security, I've noticed a lot of weird things like when it comes to like the creeps trying to pry in, that is right now their number one excuse is their identification, and it's just
So
not okay what they're doing.
So if anyone creeps or assaults someone, obviously that's wrong. It doesn't matter if they're cisgender or transgender. They should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law for an actual crime committed. But I'm not actually convinced that, like, no offense, just by your say so, that there's any, like, there's no, they've actually done studies and they found that there has been like no evidence of increased rates of reports of sexual assault in counties that have had progressive trans inclusive bathroom laws. So I'm not convinced that there's actually like, if you have seen multiple instances of men doing that and using this excuse, you should be reporting that to some like research study, because it would be an anomaly. And I'm sure the right wing media that would be the one research study they actually want to fund right now. So, um, yeah, that. There's like no evidence of that happening on any meaningful scale at all.
You know what? That's fair, but
Yeah,
it's just one of those weird
and
things.
it's
But like,
just,
where do you draw the line on identification, though? Do we allow everyone to just kind of choose whatever they want to be, like to the full extent of it?
I think as long as you're not
Because
hurting
it does.
anyone and your decisions about your identity are based in harm reduction and consent, then yeah, like what harm would it cause for everyone to identify as they want to identify?
yeah, I think people already do that, right? Like, nobody's going around policing. Like, when you say you're a man, I doubt people, Benjamin, are pulling down your pants or being like, let me get your blood sample to make sure I take your karyotype so I know you have XY chromosomes. Like, no, they just take your word for it. You look like a man, you meet my expectations, sure, you're a man. Like that, but that is just all social enforced self-report, right? That's not like, there's nothing scientific happening there.
So, do you believe that trans people, like when they fully transition and they make the full body augmentations to look as they feel, do you feel like they can hide that part of their past when they open up into a dating relationship, or do you think they should be honest? Like, I was once born as a woman, but then I transitioned, changed, and this is who I am now? Or do you think they should just keep it a secret from the person?
Well, this is a complicated thing. Okay. So, like, obviously, honesty is always going to be preferable in a relationship. However, you have to recognize that we live in a society that is very transphobic. There's a lot of violence towards trans people. So, as a trans
I'm
person,
not
if I'm
arguing
going
that
on a
at
date,
all.
what?
Oh, I was saying I don't argue that at all. I know that trans
Yeah.
people get horrifically bullied for their choices in life or lack of choices in life with what hand they were born with. But I
Yeah.
mean,
So, like,
unfortunately, people don't need a reason to bully other people. They just look for the reason. Whichever is the easiest is just kind of what they cling on to, though.
right, which is why I'm saying that I don't think trans people should be compelled to divulge their trans status when they're first meeting someone. I think if somebody tells you, if I would never want to date a trans person, if I found out you were trans, that would be a violation of trust. And they say that on the first date and you don't disclose then, maybe then there's some sort of like moral culpability or something. But personally, I don't think it's fair to compel trans people to come out when they're just starting to date someone, because I don't know that you're safe. As far as I know, you could be an extremely violent person, and telling you could put me at great risk of harm. That's why I think trans people should be allowed to date people and get to know people and trust that they're safe before they come out. Just like anything else in dating, you aren't owed, like, if dating a trans person would be a deal breaker for you, but you didn't tell them, right? You aren't owed that information right away. And if they don't feel safe enough to tell you, or you've given them reason to feel unsafe, they are perfectly justified in not telling you. Am I going to risk my safety because you have some insecurity about the implications for your sexuality that you are attracted to me? Like, that's not my fault. That's completely on you. So I don't think trans people should be compelled in any way to out themselves on a date. Now, obviously, again, honesty is always preferable, right? Like, once you've been on a few dates and you've determined that this person is either trustworthy or not, I think it's probably a good idea for you to come out to them and protect both your safety and, if you're seeing a relationship with this person, like, you would want to be honest with them and be like, hey, this is my situation, and let the relationship stand or fall on those merits. But yeah, no, I think it's so wildly unrealistic to expect that trans people are going to be like, hi, nice to meet you. Thanks for finding me attractive. I'm transgender. Like, that's a good way to get fucking killed in today's world.
Unfortunately, I do have an opposite story, and it is heartbreaking, where a friend of mine I grew up was born a male, transitioned to a woman, got the augmentation to look very attractive, very beautiful, had a one-night stand with a dude, started dating him, and then after revealing they were trans, was horrifically beaten by them and had their jaw wired shut after the beating. And I
Yeah,
don't
so why would
condone
anyone
that
want to come
action
out on the first date?
whatsoever.
If that can happen, why would anyone want to come out on the first date? Because it's exactly because stuff like that happens that trans people don't come out.
Well, it's
To our
because they
partners.
hooked up, and then she revealed at one point she was a man. The dude did get livid and like freaked out, and that's when the assault happened. And again, I do not condone that. That was a friend of mine who grew up. Like I grew up with them all of high school.
Benjamin, real quick, this is just what happens when the right pulls trans panic, right? This idea that a trans, like the guy was attracted to her, he liked her, he slept with her and enjoyed it. They had sex, he enjoyed it. But now all of a sudden, because of who she was in her past, he gets violent, right? This is the Maury and Jerry Springer effect in action, right? Because a whole generation of people have been convinced that trans people are trying to trick them, or like, who cares? Like, what do you, who like, if you're attracted to someone and you enjoyed sleeping with that person, what does it matter if they used to identify as a man? Like, what is, like, it is just this person reacting out of internalized homophobia and internalized misogyny, trans misogyny specifically.
I just wonder though, if they were honest on the first, like that first night, if my friend would have had no assault happen, like if he was just, hey, I was a man, I transitioned, are you okay with this? And the other dude was like, no, I'm definitely not okay with this. I feel like it would have been a safer route than what happened.
Yeah, you think the person who would beat the shit out of someone for their own insecurity is going to be like, oh, thank God for telling me. Now I'll go on my way. Like, no, that sounds like he would have done the exact same thing in any scenario. Like, there's no winning for trans people in this scenario. There's no right time to disclose that is ever going to protect us from violence, which is why I tell people you don't have to disclose on the first date. You can disclose as soon as you feel fucking comfortable. If that's on the first date, awesome. And that's why a lot of trans people, because most dating is happening on apps nowadays, we put that we're trans in our bio. So like you should know before you even talk to us that we're trans in most cases, right? But the thing is, a lot of people live in conservative areas where that might not be the safest thing to do. So I definitely, I think it's completely the fault of the person who's beating the shit out of trans people to blame here, and not the trans person who's getting the shit beat out of them. That they like, oh, if you had just disclosed a little bit earlier, maybe they wouldn't have, put you on the brink of death. Yeah, that sounds like some nonsense rape culture misogyny bullshit to me.
Like, I think that if somebody has a genital preference, that's totally fine. It's totally fine. There are people who just aren't attracted to certain genitalia. Totally fine. But if you're talking about dating somebody with the genitals you prefer, who you connect with, who you're attracted to, who you enjoy spending time with, and then finding out, well, they're trans means you're going to lash out in violence, bruh, that's a you problem. That's not a problem of the trans person. That is 100% a you and violence problem.
Well, I'm not saying I'm the one who got violent. This was just some random dude, and I feel completely bad for my friend who was beaten by that, because it was an unnecessary assault. It was completely not called for.
I'd say most assaults.
I don't condone what that person did whatsoever, because that was a personal friend of mine.
Let me ask you a question. Do you think trans people, and this somebody in the chat kind of brought this into my mind, do you think trans people should like wear some kind of identifying like piece on their clothes so that everybody knows they're trans?
Oh my God. Like the Jews during the Holocaust? Absolutely not.
Okay. Just making sure.
No. What I feel like is, just like in any relationship, there should be the honesty up front, and both people should make the choice. Like,
okay, let me ask you this. Should I have to
hide what you are? If you're proud that you're a woman or a transitioning woman, why are you hiding it?
We shouldn't have to, but we do because we live in a society that's violently transphobic, that beats trans women when they find out I was attracted to you and had sex with you and enjoyed it, but now I know you're trans and that makes me angry. Like that's we have to hide it. It's not our fault until society stops beating the shit out of us for existing.
Should I have to
disclose,
like if I went to prison previously, should I have to disclose that at the start of my relationship?
Yes, because
Why?
it really depends on what you went to prison for. If you're a violent rapist, you should definitely divulge that you, or at
Well,
least
I would just argue that violent
that.
rapists shouldn't be dating, period. But like,
Oh,
but like if I went to prison for like robbery and it was like 10 years ago and I'm now like 10 years older and I've changed, like, do I need to, or let's just say in my past, I was a super, like I was a fucking hardcore criminal. I robbed, I stole, or here's a better one. Let's say I was an addict. Let's say I was like a
I
hardcore
was,
addict, but
and
I've
I
been,
always
but yeah,
divulge
but let's
that to
say I've
people
been
all the
sober for
time.
10 years. Let's say I've been sober for 10 years. Do I have to disclose up front immediately that I used to be like that I was an addict? Do I have to disclose that stuff? Or is it okay to bring that up when I'm ready to tell the person?
No, I think you should you should openly say that. Like, I was an addict. I've been clean for 11 years now, and I straight up let people know, like, hey man, I used to be a heroin addict. That way, people can be like, all right, so you're sober now. I'm like, yeah. And if I find out you're going to do certain things around me, I need to get the fuck away from you because I do not want to relapse ever.
I think it's kind of an unrealistic thing to expect that somebody has to divulge all of the potentially deal-breaking facts about them to a potential partner on the first date. Because how many things could potentially be a deal breaker for someone, right? Like not being able to get pregnant could be a deal breaker, but that could be deeply traumatic for the person who's not able to get pregnant. Do they need to bring that up on the first date because the other person really wants kids and they wouldn't have dated you if you hadn't known? I don't think so, because you don't
Well,
get that information all the
I,
time. Dating is supposed to be a process where you get to know the person, you find out if you are compatible. Like this notion of like,
this is the
I have to divulge all the
wildest
potentially
coincidence
deal-breaking
because the
factors right
girl I
away, or else
dated.
I'm wasting your time is just ridiculous.
I don't know. I saw a woman on a dating app one time say no blacks. So I think if you don't want to date a trans person, just say that in your bio. Like I don't think it's
True.
up to the trans person to have to divulge. I think it should be up to you to tell people what you don't want up front.
I know, but you guys are hitting like real seriously, like weirdly close points to home because one of the friends I dated, one of the first things she revealed is she had cancer, she had her uterus removed, she was unable to have kids. She knew I wanted to have kids, but I made the conscious decision I loved her so much that I'd rather be with her than like be with some stranger or try to go out there again and find someone who could have kids.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just
but
the way it is.
imagine a world where any woman who was like sterile, who couldn't have kids either via having cancer or whatever the reason might be, also was at significantly higher risk of being brutally murdered. Would you then be like, yeah, it's probably best you don't tell me that up front because you never know if the person is going to be a brutal murderer? It sounds like your friend
Ooh.
finally opened up when they were comfortable with the person, and the person still turned out to be a violent sociopath.
You know what? You're not wrong on those last two statements. I will admit, if there was a fear of violent actions coming out, you should hide it. But at what point, like when you reveal it, it's not going to get safe then by that logic. Like if you reveal 5 years down the road or 2 weeks down the road, the violence is
Okay,
still going to come.
we're
It's
not talking
like you're
about
in a
hiding this for 5 years. Like if you're going to start a relationship with somebody, relationships are built on trust, and I think it's really important to be honest in a situation like that. But like we're talking about like dates, like we're talking about disclosing on first dates, right? Like that's where the risk is. Like I don't think there is a perfect timeline, and I think if someone feels good enough to say it on the first date, that's probably a good idea. Like being upfront as early as possible is always going to be preferable to waiting. But the reality is that conversations are hard, people are imperfect, and relationships are not always like linear or don't always follow the perfect timeline. I think if somebody waits till date 3 to tell you they're trans, that's not a big deal. If somebody waits till date 7 to tell you they're trans because you guys are moving really slowly, who fucking cares? Like you still have the right as the other person to say, oh, cool, I don't mind. I really like you. I want to stay dating you. Or sorry, that's actually a deal breaker for me. As much as I like you, we're going to have to go separate ways, right? You can be adult about it either way. Nobody's saying like, you have to, now that you know I'm trans, stay with me. Ha ha ha, I've trapped you. It's not about that. It's about like honesty and communication and safety. Like just doing things in the way that is good for everybody involved. And while you might want to know on the first date, that might not be the best thing for everybody involved.
Hmm. I don't know though. Part of me still feels like the violence would still happen if the violence is going to happen no matter when the reveal is. If you
So
reveal early on,
if I think on
you
day
can at
5, I
least.
realize, oh, this person's going to kill me if they find out I'm trans, you know what I do? Never talk to them ever again. I block them on everything. I block their number. I never speak to them again. Uh,
Oh yeah,
Whatever
that'd
you
be the
have to
most
do.
logical thing to
But
do
you
is just to get
you
away
never
from that
know
situation.
you never know with men when the violence is going to come. Like most women who date people that are domestic abusers, right? They don't know that that person's a domestic abuser before they get into the relationship. You find that out when the domestic abuse starts happening, right? Like my biggest thing is how
Yeah.
about why don't we instead of saying trans people should have to disclose in case someone's violent, why don't we just try to destigmatize the transphobia and ingrained homophobia and misogyny that exists and teach cisgender men specifically that like you're not gay if you date a trans woman. And even if you were, it's not a bad thing. Like it's not like you're not going to get hurt. Your ego's not going to get fractured. You're not gonna fucking burst into flames because you find someone hot and you want to spend a night with them just because they're like. Why don't we teach? This is part of why number 3 exists on the board because right now we stigmatize trans people so much that the minute someone finds out someone's trans, they go, "Oh, how dare you? Oh, blah blah blah," and blah blah blah. Again, it's the Jerry Springer and Maury effect because these two motherfuckers created a show where half the fucking plot lines were, "Oh, trans person's tricking another person." It's stupid. Instead, we should be teaching men, don't be. I mean, bare minimum, don't be violent, right?
Yeah. If you have a
Yeah.
problem with the trans woman you're dating,
Well,
be an adult and say, okay, that's a deal breaker for me. I'm really sorry. I wish you the best of luck and go home.
I'm just gonna say this on a weird off note. Every dude should just kind of basically accept the fact that they're somewhat homo in at least one way or another, because even dudes who act 100
Based, I guess,
complete
yeah.
straight will still watch porn and be like turned on by the dude's dick while he's going into a woman. So every dude should kind of grasp onto the idea that you're a little gay on the spectrum, man. Like every dude's
I
a
mean,
little
I
gay.
agree. Porn where you don't see the penis is kind of boring, but like I
Yes, I would agree
Uh,
that there's no like state that your brain is in. Like people like to frame it as like a 1-0 on off gay straight brain state, and that is not what's happening. Like you just like there's no reason I know why I like vanilla ice cream or why I like Full Metal Alchemist. I don't know why I like the people that I'm attracted to on like a romantic and sexual level, and all of those things should be existing on like a bit of a spectrum.
if it fits, it ships.
Well, Vanilla
Honestly,
Ice Cream is delicious, and Full Metal Alchemist is a fucking badass show that hits hard, but
True.
you should just kind of accept the fact that, like, dudes are going to be fucking violent monsters because, for the most part of, like, all of human history, they're the ones who had to go out and rip things apart with either their fucking swords or guns. There's always been a
We had
high
to.
level of testosterone and violence that comes from the male side, and it's just kind of ingrained in them because of hundreds, if not thousands of years of just terrible existence and fighting.
Benjamin, I have higher hopes for men than it sounds like you do. Men are perfectly capable of not
Oh,
being violent people, and I think we can affect that by teaching them, like Jovan was saying, like the just LGBTQ education in schools, like having conversations with men, trying to reach them and realize that this isn't a trap. If you find out that the person you're dating is trans or can't get pregnant or any other factor, and that if they are and that's a problem for you, again, the thing is to just be a fucking adult and to walk away. Like, okay, not every relationship's gonna work out. There's what, like 8 billion people on the planet. I think there's some other options if this one doesn't work out for you.
and I fully agree with that.
Cool. Then we're on the same page. Trans women don't have to disclose on the first date. Word. Thank you, Benjamin, for your allyship to the trans community.
I've never been against trans people. I just like to debate just to have fun.
Right
Okay. All right. Well, it's been 30 minutes, so we're going to bring up the next guest. But thanks for calling in, Benjamin.
Yep. You guys have a great day.
You too. He said we're all at least a little bit gay. Based as fuck.